Right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the Huddersfield Planning Committee meeting. I'll start now with item 1, membership of the committee. Have we any Councillor Munro?
Hello, yes. I'm substituting on behalf of Councillor Watson, John Watson. Well, Wilson in fact. Sorry.
No worries. Now. Councillor Richard.
I'm subbing on behalf of James Homewood.
Thank you. We'll move on then to minutes of previous meeting. Somebody like to move correct record? All in favour, please show. Thank you. Item 3, interest and lobbying. I would like to start from Councillor McGuinn.
Yeah, on the application for the Sun Inn on 92785, I have...
Councillor McGuinn, it'd be easier if you just give the page number.
Oh, sorry.
Easier for you and easier for
Really? I never do it like that. I can't find the page number. Oh. Okay. Oh yeah. At one time, I want to explain my interest in this. At one time, the officer, Francis Davis, he was minded to allow the application to go through, and I talked to the landlord of the Sun Inn about it, and I talked to the residents around it, and then the officer got an environmental report and changed his opinion. So I'm not quite sure how I stand on that. I was trying to support the officer, and the officer changed his mind, and so I think I've just acted as a ward councillor in this, and so I don't think I've declared any interest on either side.
So you're saying that you still retain an open mind?
Yes.
You were leaning towards one view and then you were leaning towards another view, but
yes.
Today you've got an open mind and you're not predetermined.
Exactly. What I'm saying, I've talked to both sides about it, because at one time they were minded to pass it and now he's minded to refuse it.
That's
all.
fine. That's just a ward councillor activity.
Okay.
That's fine.
Obviously an interest in the Clayton Fields application for the walk. I was a member of the Clayton Fields Action Committee years ago, and I did fill in a form about the paths on the field. So although I will be able to stay in the room, I won't take any part in the debate. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Page 169. I'm a member of Home Valley Parish Council, but don't take part in any of their planning decisions. Page 47, I've been lobbied by objector, no action taken. And page 187, I've been lobbied by objectors, and I did actually meet with them, but I only gave procedural advice.
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Page 169, planning application 93508. I was made aware of the situation of the alteration of the design of the planning permission, and as of yet, I haven't made any particular comment either way. Obviously, both with the applicant and the people that are opposing it. So that's the stage that I'm at the moment, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Stockwell.
Clayton Field application. I declare my interest before twice in the meeting. Discussion, but I stay in the room, do the same.
Councillor Sowa.
Madam Chair.
Councillor Ola.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Clayton Field, exactly the same as what Councillor Sokol has said. I will be staying in the room. Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths.
Yes. Application 2016-91578. I've been lobbied. No action taken.
Councillor Richards.
Application 90501, page 122. I've made comments simply about the junction on that road rather than the application itself, and I've known the family connected with this for many years because we live in the same village more than anything.
Are you actually going to vote on that then? Do you feel that you're far enough detached from it?
I am willing to accept your decision, but I think I can be pretty honest about where I'm coming from when it comes to a vote. We haven't got that we haven't discussed this application at all.
Well, if you want my decision, then I think I'm quite willing to to allow you to vote. Councillor Opal.
Thank you, Chair. Page 135. I've been lobbied by the applicant, and I've also had a meeting with the applicant, but I just went through procedure, and I told them I was on the committee, so couldn't do much further than that.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Munro.
Hello. I'd like to declare a personal interest in agenda item 25, page 157, and I'd also like to say that I have spoken with the applicants and was largely supportive of their application, and then the environmental report came in, and I've since spoken to residents, so I'll be abstaining on the vote today. Thank you. And I've only been drafted in at the last minute in any event, so I don't feel I'm in a position to actually speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been lobbied by email on page 39, which I haven't responded to. And I'm also on Meltham Town Council on the item 97, but I'm not on the planning committee, so I've had no involvement whatsoever. So, right, we'll move on then to item 4, admission of the public. Well, they're all here, or most of them are. Item 5, deputations and petitions. I understand we... Richard, have we... Public question time.
I've got 2 questions, Chair. I'll take them each in turn. All members and subs on planning committees have to receive training to sit on a planning committee. That includes annual updates. As a sub, I have attended these training courses myself. I have never received training in relation to public rights of way. I would like to know how many of the councillors on the committee today have received training in relation to public rights of way in general and definitive map modification orders in particular.
You have a second question.
The second question is totally different. The second question is totally different. Do you want to? Can I have an answer to the first question?
I think we've a categoric, straight answer for that. Then I don't believe anybody's been trained with regard to public right of way.
I think when we had a planning update training, I believe that right of way training was including in that. Yeah, it's part of the training, I think. Yeah.
Do you want to add something, Charles? I'll make a general point, and Giles Cheetham, our PROW officer can come in and give some specific comments on the training he provides. Annual training is provided to all new members, as you say, and an update is given. It isn't practical or realistic to expect members to have every aspect of town planning given to them in those trainings. PROWs are covered in a general way, but not in a specific way. They are part of my presentation. I have them on slides that I do, but the detail, no, there isn't detail. But the training is to give members an understanding of what is involved. Members themselves can go and find a way, go and look at those particular points. It's about awareness as much as it is about the depth. So, Giles, do you want to come in and give some specifics?
Thank you, Chair. If I can just clarify that I personally have given committee member training over a period of time due to the growth of things that are covered in that training. Then, as Matthias has said, then the PROW issues have been incorporated into the general training undertaken by planning for both existing and new members. So there hasn't been a separate training module done by me. I couldn't speak to individual members of the committee, but certainly over a number of years I undertook training of members in relation to planning or Planning and Highways Committee, as this actually is dealing with highways matters too. So that has taken place. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Would you like your second
just
question?
Supplementary on that then. Well, as a member of the Planning Committee subs, I've never had training on public rights of way and DMMOs. So if it's been done, it must have been done some considerable time ago. My second question is, were committee members aware that officers are now making recommendations and writing reports before the public consultation period on planning applications have expired?
I think the preparation of reports and the preparation of arriving at a decision is an ongoing event. The reality is no decisions are made until publicity has expired on any planning application, and any new evidence received before the decisions are made are then taken into account before that decision is made.
Thank you. No further questions. Item 7, site visits, which we've carried out. Item 16, local planning authority appeals. I note there was 3, and one there that actually the committee got it right.
Yeah, 3. Thank you, Chair. 3 planning appeals have been received. 1 was allowed for installation of windows on a property. 2 were dismissed. They were both decisions made at this planning committee. 1 was made in accordance with a recommendation of officers to refuse, and that was at Wellhouse Lane. That was the retrospective application for a building in the Green Belt. It was subject to enforcement action. The committee agreed with the recommendation that it should be refused. The appeal was dismissed and the enforcement notice has been upheld, and now it is in compliance period for the removal of that building in accordance with that notice. The second one relates to a member overturn for a, you probably recall this, at Spa Topwood, Whitehead Lane, Lockwood, single-storey rear extension, dormer window to rear and porch to front, formation of retaining wall and associated works. Did come forward with a positive recommendation after negotiations. The committee did not accept that. It went forward to an appeal, and the inspector has certainly reinforced that message about the development being unacceptable. So that's the outcome, Chair. Thank you.
Right, before, planning applications. So to start the planning applications, what I propose to do this, there's 3, or you could call it 4 with the G's Garage, because there's 2 there, pages 71 and 85, for deferment. I'd look, rather than keep people waiting here, if it's deferred, they'll be waiting here for it, and we'll waste the time. I don't intend to do that. I intend to get to it straight away. So G's Garage, first of all. It's been... I'm proposing deferment for pages 71 and 85.
I'll second that, Chair.
Please show. That is deferred. Thank you. The second one is 115, which is Britannia Road, which is the big warehouse, if you remember, which was Lindsay's. I'm moving that be deferred. Is that that's seconded? All in favour? And finally, page 241, bridge steer at Birkby. I understand that the officer has asked us to give him more time to get his report together. So I'll move that be deferred. Is that seconded? Yes? All in favour? Thank you. So that's those three now struck off today's agenda. So now I'll move on to page 33, which is the 231 Nethermore, Huddersfield.
Thank you, Chair. The officer who's prepared the report has unfortunately had to attend a funeral today, and so I'm going to read the summary, but I won't delay you too long because I think we can deal with it quite quickly. This is for a footpath at Nethermore. The legal position is that the Council has a statutory duty to maintain the formal record of public rights of way and to respond to applications and discovery of evidence of unrecorded and mistakenly recorded public rights of way. The Council must make a decision regarding the order, application and any appropriate PROW status of this route, making any order that is requisite further to the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, Section 53. In accordance with the Council's delegation scheme, this is a decision for the subcommittee. Any person may make an objection or representation to an order modifying the definitive map and statement. If the objections are not withdrawn, any order made would be forwarded to the Secretary of State at DEFRA and likely considered by an inspector appointed by the Secretary of State, who may or may not confirm the order. In this case, on the 23rd of November 2017, the subcommittee made a decision to authorise the making of an order to record the Huddersfield Public Right-of-Way 231 at Nethermore as a public bridle way. The order was advertised and has been opposed, who is also the applicant, by the applicant in a DMMO application 159 and 182 relating to the matter. Shortly before the a hearing has been set down for January 2019. Shortly before the Council's statement of case was due to be submitted to DEFRA, officers were advised that the position to be supported should be that the way be recorded as a public footpath rather than a bridleway in the light of government advice produced by the Secretary of State. This was because the expert witness the Council had instructed at that time gave more weight to the guidance given by the government and produced by the Secretary of State than perhaps he or she could have done. There was a difference in weight given to guidance. So, as a consequence of the inquiry timetable, the Council was obliged to take an emergency decision to put in a statement of case so that we wouldn't breach the inquiry timetable rules. That was why there was a note to committee at the last subcommittee to note that that had been done. So there was transparency and openness, and the committee and the public were aware of that interim decision. However, while the evidence has been gathered for the inquiry, which is due to start on January the 29th, 2019, the Council, as barrister counsel, advises us to revert to the original position, so which is that so members are asked to note the emergency decision, recognise the amended advice since then, and endorse its original stance that the right be recorded as a public bridleway. I just want to say to members that in this case, the decision maker is the inspector, and at 1.9 on page 34, you'll see when it comes to that decision, the inspector may confirm the order as a bridleway, may modify the application and then confirm the order, or not confirm the order at all, in which case it would remain as a byway open to all traffic. So this decision you're taking now, today, is a mere confirmation of your original decision on the 23rd of November. And ultimately, it's the inspector who decides what status the route has.
We have Andy Dunlop.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Dunlop. I'm a consultant in rights of way. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, a Miss Anna O'Keefe of the Isle of Wight took exception to the way that her local rights of way officers were dealing with claims of footpaths across her land, and the way they prepared reports for their elected members. She, by way of judicial review, went to the High Court, and as a result of that, guidance was then issued. This said, amongst other things, that elected members should visit the site that they're deciding on, that they should make their own decisions based upon all the evidence that was being relied upon, and that included legal advice. That hasn't happened in this case. No site visit has taken place, and you haven't been made aware of all the evidence that's been relied upon by the Council. Indeed, at the time you made your decision in November last year, the rights of way user evidence forms were hidden. They were secret and weren't shown to us or anybody else until after you'd made your decision. The legal advice you've been given recently also hasn't been shared with you. And you recall recently in Parliament, members there objected strongly to the elected body making decisions without showing their legal advice. I request that you reconsider this matter in light of all the evidence that is now available. Thank you.
Angela Bradley.
My name is Angela Bradley and I am the landowner at Nethermoor Farm. In November last year, I attended a planning meeting here and heard council officers mislead elected members about an alleged public right-of-way through my property. A year later, I am here again and officers are still misleading elected members with regards to my property. Last year, officers said the alleged right-of-way was a byway open to all traffic, but that they thought it should be a bridleway. On the 23rd of October 2018, officers told the planning inspectorate it was not a bridleway but a footpath. On the 1st of November, they came and told elected members that they thought it was a footpath, but provided no evidence to support that assertion. They didn't give elected members a choice or a vote, they simply told them. On the 13th of November 2018, officers wrote to the planning inspectorate again and said that they had changed their minds and now thought it was a bridleway again on different matters. Today, you all thought you were voting for a footpath, only to be told that the dance has changed again and it's a bridleway. The question to elected members is, do you believe that council officers actually know what they are doing? Have they shown you the correct evidence for any of their assertions? And in your mind, do you actually believe that you fully understand what is going on here? The definitive map held by the council does not show a byway open to all traffic on my property. There is no legal definitive map modification order to support officers' claims of such. The markings on the map do not conform to regulations laid out in the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. The implementation of the Natural Environment and Communities Act 2006 prevents this route ever becoming a byway open to all traffic. If something does not exist, it cannot be downgraded. Officers have served us 5 times to remove legal security measures from our track and been rebuffed. They have not and will not take us to court because the definitive map does not support them. On the 11th of January 2016, officers and Kirklees Bridleways Group, working together, asked District Judge Mike Fanning for a legal order to enter my property. Judge Fanning read my legal argument and told both Kirklees Bridleways Group and the council barrister to go away and rethink their position, or it was going to cost them a lot of money. The claim was withdrawn 2 weeks later and never returned to court. You are being misled to believe something that legally cannot happen. You have already been misled by your officers into wasting £100,000 already, at least, on this. If you accept what they are telling you today without checking the information provided to you, you are going to waste a similar amount at least again and be back where you started. Thank you.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Sims.
I'm concerned, Chair, at the different aspects of this case that's now coming forward that councillors weren't aware of when you were asking us to make decisions. I think it would be appropriate at this time to defer this case and, in actual fact, get our rights of way and all the information that we have on this together and have a separate meeting for members on this committee so that we can actually make an informed decision. In these times where we're saying the council is short of money, I'm not one to expect that we waste money on tasks that may or may not be right in the collation of what we've been told. And it's important that we need, as a committee, to be assured that the information we get from at least from our officers and our legal department are the correct ones. Because it's bad enough on these decisions to try and make an informed decision. Can I say, in 30-odd years of being on this committee, I've never had Pacific right-of-way training. It's been mentioned a time or two on the side when we've had training for normal planning, but we've had not specific. So this is a procedural matter that councillors are putting on the line, really, their knowledge and know-how without the full consequences of having been trained and know the full knowledge of these cases. It's going to crop up again, I think, in probably a few months' time with others. And I am concerned this moment in time of some of the decisions on rights of ways, etc., particularly in my area as well, are in my mind, perverse decisions of which I have not got the legal framework as a councillor to be able to help our residents and constituents in these matters. I know they're not all right and they're not all wrong, but we do need to be sure as a committee that what we're dealing with, we can give confidence to the public that we are in that position, that we do actually have knowledge of the subject that we're dealing with. Thank you, Chair.
I've got the our legal representative wishes to come in here.
As I indicated earlier, the inquiry process is en route now. We can't stop it. The inspector is going to listen to going to see and hear all the evidence in detail over possibly, I think it's set down for 3 days. So all the representations which the objectors have made today will be heard more fully and in more depth over 3 days by the inspector who is going to make a decision. The council's case is being put at the same time, which is merely that the council is presenting the evidence which it has received. In all of these matters is an evidential question and to which the law is applied. Consequently, the evidence is gathered by officers, it's assembled, councils have a statutory duty to come to a decision so that the process can move forward. So the council has to decide one way or another what they think that evidence supports, and having done that,
they make an order, and if it is objected to, as it is in this case, it's taken out of our hands and goes straight to the inspector. The hiccup in the middle was because the hearing is set down and there's a very strict timetable for putting a statement of case in, and had we not put a statement of case in, then we would have been penalised in costs. And as with these things, with all hearings inquiries, the matter, it's a moving feast. It progresses. So we can't stop it. We need to be able to tell the inspector that our decision on the 23rd of November is the one that we will be sticking to at the hearing on the 29th of January. And the interim emergency note to committee was merely for transparency and openness, so that the committee and the public and everybody knew that there weren't decisions being taken against the committee without anybody knowing about it.
Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was confused before. I'm even more confused now. So what you're saying is we're not going to make a decision anyway. The inspector's going to make a decision. So we can't change the decision that we made before without, but yet we've got a statutory duty to make a decision. That's why I'm completely confused, and I've no idea now whether this is a footpath or is it a bridle way. Well, we don't know that yet, because the evidence which is collected has been collected and presented to the council, has been considered to be a bridle way. When we had that stack of evidence, and that's the decision, and that's all the information that the members saw to make that decision on the 23rd of November, members have had full sight of all the evidence in their paperwork. On the 23rd of November, members effectively said, if this is objected to, this is our stance. In the same way as a planning application for non-determination, perhaps, we come back to members and say, if you were the decision makers, what would you have said? In this case, we get the evidence in, the council must make an order, and if it's opposed and objected to, then it goes to the Secretary of State to make a decision.
I'm afraid I can't take stuff from the gallery. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Bellamy?
Yeah. There was a mention of a site visit. I'm not aware we've ever had a site visit at all. And I just think it may be better if we did have a site visit. At least if you see something, you might, I don't know, you could probably weigh up whether it is a bridle way or it is a footpath, sort of. The trouble is with these applications, which are all retrospective, that's the difference between footpath applications. It's retrospective based on user evidence in the past. Town and village greens, again, it's based on user evidence in the past. Merely looking at the site won't tell you what its history is. That evidence and that information comes from user evidence forms. So merely going to a site won't help members to make a decision.
Councillor Sokol, and then I'm going to say something, and then Councillor Sims.
Very quickly. So I think it would be better if we listen to the advice from our legal officer. It's up to the members anyway. Thank you.
But what I'd like to say is the fact that this is going to the Secretary of State, and as far as he's concerned, he will have all that evidence, and he will be the person that will ultimately make the decision, not really us. So, Sims, you...
Just add to that, Chair. Obviously, the evidence you're giving on behalf of this committee to the inspector is flawed, because we've not, in actual fact, been given the full remit of the decision that we need to make. So it's flawed evidence as regards, my regards, for the evidence that I was presented, and the decision that I've given is, in my mind now, flawed evidence, and it should not be used, on my behalf anyway, because it's not right.
I'm moving the officer's recommendation for the Secretary of State to decide this. Anybody wish to second it?
I'll second you.
Thank you, Councillor McGuinn. All those in favour, please show.
Sorry.
Against?
2 against.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you.
Page 18. Clayton Fields, Edgerton.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Giles Cheetham and I am a Council Officer dealing with public rights of way matters. This item relates to an application that has been made to the Council for an order to add a public footpath at land at Clayton Fields, Edgerton. This committee has already determined the Council's position in relation to 7 definitive map modification order applications for Clayton Fields. Further to your previous decision, the Council has made a definitive map modification order to add various footpaths to the formal record of public rights of way. Committee found that there was a reasonable allegation that a public footpath had been dedicated regarding public user during the period 1976 to 1996. The definitive map modification order that the Council has made, as well as the separate public path order that has been made by the Council to extinguish the claimed routes and provide alternative routes, have been formally opposed when advertised. These 2 orders are due to be forwarded to the Secretary of State to determine in accordance with the previous decisions of this committee. The application before you today, which has a file reference 204, refers to a route at the northern end of the field above Clayton Dyke, running between Huddersfield Public Footpath 345 and the public road to the east of Clayton Fields. Application 204 specifically cites the previous DMMO application reference 183 and specifically asks that the Council considers the evidence that was submitted with that application 183. The request here is at page 4 of Appendix A to this report, written by the applicant themselves. The evidence submitted with application reference 183 is evidence which has already been considered by the committee. The committee has already authorised the making of an order in relation to application 183, with prospective Huddersfield footpath 477 being shown in the opposed definitive map modification order across the northern part of the field between Huddersfield 345 and the public road to the east. On screen at the moment is Appendix W to the report, which shows a composite plan of these 3 routes. Application Plan 183, Application Plan 204, and DMMO Order Route Huddersfield 477. Officers' view is that the current application relates to a dispute over the precise alignment of Huddersfield 477, that no further order is requisite, and that the Council should submit the information connected with DMMO application 204 along with the opposed order. The applicant for 183, as a representative of the Clayton Fields Action Group, and the applicant for 204 have objected to the DMMO that has already been made. Along with other matters, representations regarding the precise alignment of public use across the field between 1976 and 1996 may be considered by the Secretary of State at DEFRA in determining the opposed order, perhaps at a public inquiry called by his inspector. The inspector would have powers to modify the imposed order including any appropriate amendment to the precise alignment of paths shown in the order already made, including Huddersfield 477. I refer members to the report and the update. Thank you, Chair.
We have Jonathan Adamson, who will also be speaking on behalf of Bill McGee. Yeah.
Chair and committee, I'm Jonathan Adamson. I'm the chair of Clayton Fields Action Group. You will be aware that a direction was issued by the Inspectorate on the 22nd of November 2017 to determine claimed right-of-way 183, the issue before you, and that the Inspector stated in the direction the Council has effectively decided that the claimed route is a path or a way which is affected by development and needs to be stopped up or diverted accordingly. Nevertheless, no formal determination of the application has been made. On the 15th of May 2018, I wrote to Terry Lyons, the chair of the Planning Committee, pointing out that all the claimed application routes have been altered by Kirklees officers since the direction was issued by the Inspectorate on the 22nd of November 2017. In my letter, I also asked your chair to pass on my letter to the committee before it voted on the 17th of May 2018. If you did not receive a copy of my letter or read it, you may be unaware that you voted through routes on the 22nd of February 2018 and the 21st of June 2018 as rights of way, which were not the claimed application routes, contravening the Inspectorate's direction on the 22nd of November 2017. Did you receive a copy of my letter and read it?
$30 seconds.
Do I take that as a no? You didn't? Yes, I understand that. I finished. I'm just asking the committee whether they received my letter.
I honestly don't know. I did have some papers on this matter. I couldn't tell you whether
Right. So you're unaware that the routes were changed by the officers? All the routes?
Right, your time's up. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Okay. No. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is Bill McKee's statement to you. Bill McGee has cancer in its later stages, so couldn't be here to do it himself. Again, Chair and members of the committee, the issue before you is that the Council has incorrectly recognised the alignment of the route subject of Definitive Map Modification Order, Application Reference 183. So that's a quote, straight quote. On the 17th of May 2018, this committee suspended its decision in order to be briefed about the changes made by the Council's officers to all the claimed rights-of-way application routes submitted for Clayton Fields. At that time, Jonathan Adamson pointed out during the committee meeting that the altered routes recommended to the committee by the Council's officers as rights-of-way all pass through the Victorian tram shelter on Edgerton Road. an impossibility, and the Alice in Wonderland alignment of the routes. After the meeting, the Rights of Way officer wanted to discuss the committee decision with the Clayton Fields Rights of Way applicants and supporters. During the exchange, the Rights of Way officer was asked to survey and record the walked route of claimed right of way 183 in order to remove any ambiguity about its location. He refused to do this. Jonathan Adamson wrote to the Rights of Way officer on the 25th of May 2018 requesting, again, that the officer survey and record the claimed right of way 183 route. To date, the right of way unit has not surveyed and recorded the route of claimed right of way 183
30 seconds.
Or offered an explanation for not doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Members.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we've got one more speaker, which is Mike Woodward, who's the chair of Marsh Community Forum.
Thank you, Chair. I just really want to reiterate the points that you've already heard. The Marsh Community Forum, of which I'm chair, has long taken an interest in Clayton Fields. People have acknowledged that they've used the area and used the footpaths across the area for many years. What we're talking about here is the detail of the location of a footpath, but it's a very important issue. And I've gone back and I've looked at the papers that you considered at the meetings that were mentioned earlier this year. I've looked at the papers that were submitted last year. And it's very clear that the route of the claimed public right-of-way 183 has altered, it's changed. And so you've been asked to make a decision on a footpath that has actually changed the route. This footpath is particularly important. If you look at the map there, you can see that it runs across close to Clayton Dyke. That area is an area of mature woodland. It's a habitat for all kinds of species. For example, I've seen owls, I've seen foxes, I've seen bats down there whilst I've been walking down there. And it would act, if there is going to be development on this land, it would act as a kind of green corridor between the development that takes place and the habitat and the wildlife that already exists. And that's why there's a particular strength of feeling about Route 183. What I'm concerned about is that the actual course of the route shouldn't have been changed. And that's the all-important issue that I'm asking you to consider here, is that the decisions that you were asked to make, I think in May of this year, you were shown a map where the route of 183 had been altered. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm bringing the PRO officer in just to give any clarification, if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the route, and the reason that we've put the composite plan Appendix W up on the screen here, is that so Mr. Adamson, who spoke later, his application is the purple dash line here. So Mr. Adamson is basically saying that his purple dash line here is actually this red dashed line here, which is Mr. Henfrey's application route. So there's a difference between Mr. Henfrey's application route and Mr. Adamson's application route. Mr. Adamson's application route here, 183, which has constantly been referred to, is actually on the banking of Clayton Dyke and is not a walkable route at all when you actually look at where that route physically is. So it would come as no surprise, I would suggest, that the council's decision, members' decision in relation to the route, is different from Mr. Adamson's. As was mentioned in committee reports on decisions that members have already made, the council received scores and scores and scores of evidence forms, each individual person putting in their own alignment of the route of where it was. No matter what decision the council takes, the council cannot finalise this matter. The council cannot finalise this matter. The council has made a decision in relation to the evidence that was submitted at the time. in regard to this and to the general point raised by the previous item, I won't speak to the particulars of the previous item, but as a general point raised by the previous item, is that the file of these applications is listed in background papers for members. If any members want to see any detail whatsoever of the background papers that are here, in detail, unredacted, etc., then they may do so by contacting the officer listed as the contact officer. However, that information is not public. So as one of the previous speakers on the previous item said that they could not get this and it was secret, it is not secret, it is data protected. The Council is not allowed to release this information. There is a specific period during which the Council may release this information to the public, and that is the period during which an order is advertised. Prior to that, the vast majority of information that is there is restricted and we are not allowed to make it available to the public. But if any members wish to see that information, they may do so by asking officers about the background papers. A summary of the information is presented to to members in the officer report, and that is the way that those things are dealt with across the board in these definitive modification order matters. So basically what we have here, and what officers are saying to members, is there is a dispute about the alignment of the path. There are 80 or more than 80 people who are talking about it. We are talking about 6 different routes across Clayton Fields. We are talking about public user between 1976 and 1996. We are not talking about public user last week, last year, or even 10 years ago. We are talking about user which, up to the point at which Clayton Fields was recorded as a town and village green. So that is the period of time that we are looking at. The Council, if it were to hold a public inquiry to look into all of these details and cross-examine every single witness, even if the Council did all of that prior to making a decision, the matter would still have to be submitted to the Secretary of State, potentially to hold a statutory public inquiry as opposed to a non-statutory public inquiry. Officers' view is that this application is a dispute about the alignment of this route, whether you call it 183-204 or Huddersfield Footpath 477 as listed. If you look at the papers which are appended to the report, if you hear the speakers who have just spoken, they all say the same thing. They are disputing the Council's assessment of Route 477. Officers suggest and recommend to members that no further order is made and that the matter is submitted, and information in connection with application 204 is submitted for consideration and determination by the inspector appointed by the Secretary of State, noting that this is a separate application and noting that there is a specific dispute about the exact alignment of the path used between 1976 and 1996. Thank you, Chair.
So, members, so this is not dissimilar from the last one. I'll take anybody who wants to speak. Yeah, well, I'm just being reminded of the office recommendation. I'm sorry, you're finished. I'll move officer's recommendation. Is that second?
Can I read out officer recommendation just to highlight it to members? The officers recommend that members choose option 3 at paragraph 216 and decide that the DMMO application 204 relates to a dispute over the specific alignment of a route that is already subject to an unconfirmed, undetermined DMMO made by the Council, which is to be submitted to the Secretary of State for determination. And section 216 of the paragraph 216 says effectively that members conclude that the application evidence relate to a question about the precise alignment of a route that is already subject to a DMMO made by the Council in October 2018, which is opposed and is to be submitted to the Secretary of State, and that the Council should submit this additional evidence from this application and information relating to this application with the opposed DMO bundle file.
Councillor Griffiths, do you second that?
Councillor Griffiths, did you second that? Yes. All those in favour, please show.
Keep your hands raised, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4.
Against? Abstentions? Thank you. Right, we'll move on to page 47. That's the Manchester Road Sellers Clough Mill.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fazana Tabassum. I'm the Planning Case Officer for this application. Full details of the application were presented to members at the last committee where it was deferred to allow members to carry out a site visit to consider the relationship of the site access with Stubbing Road. A site visit was carried out by members this morning. At the last meeting, it was also requested that consideration be given to reduce the speed limit to 30 miles per hour on Manchester Road and making Stubbing Road one way to prevent egress of vehicles onto Manchester Road as suggested by Councillor Bellamy. I will now pass you on to my colleague, the Highway Officer, to comment on this and the additional surveys that have been carried out before I conclude.
Through you, Chair. Jamie Turner, Highways Development Management. Given the proposed improvements to Manchester Road and to the access of the site, including widening, 2 traffic islands, and new lining, Highways Development Management raised no objection to the scheme. This view is consolidated by the results of the traffic survey on Stubbing Road outlined in the report and by the opinions of the Council's Highway Safety Team, who would not support suggested modifications to the existing road network. The applicant has demonstrated that the scheme conforms to all Council's highway safety criteria. Thank you, Chair.
To conclude, officers consider that the development proposed can be sufficiently accommodated with the agreed improvements to the site entrance and recommended for approval, subject to the delegation of the application and the issuing of the decision notice to the Head of Strategic Investment in order to complete the list of conditions, including those contained within this report, and to secure a Section 106 agreement to cover the matters as set out in the agenda. If I can also bring members' attention to the informative note in the update, basically stating that a formal demolition notice is received by Building Control and that the applicant is made aware of the need to obtain a licence from Natural England for demolition due to the mill building having several back roofs. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, we've got Councillor Rob Walker.
Councillor Rob Walker, Combe Valley Ward Member. I would like to speak in support of the officer's recommendation to support the application. Earlier, I did have concerns about this development, but I feel that most of these have been addressed. There is strong public support for the use of brownfield sites for housing development. And I think this is a site where, over the years, it's been proven that other forms of development are unlikely to work. I think it's unfortunate that the existing mill building will have to be demolished, but given its current state, I do not really see any alternative. I'm also pleased by the decision to omit 4 houses from earlier plans, and I'm pleased that now the proposed development is within the footprint of the existing building, thus protecting the green belt. I do have some concerns. I support the comments that were made earlier by my ward colleague, Councillor Bellamy, about the speed limit on Manchester Road in this area. It's quite a dangerous stretch of road anyway, with the bends, the Sellers Clough bends. It also tends to be a very damp section of road because of the tree coverage. And I think the imposition of a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit would make this area safer. I also think there is a danger from traffic exiting onto Manchester Road from Stubbing Road, which you can see from the plan on the screen up here, is almost exactly opposite the entrance and exit to the site. So I feel those would be sensible things to improve safety on the site. I would also like to see a firmer condition regarding a potential contribution to the improvement of the canal towpath. This is mentioned in section 10.41 of the report. At the moment, ward councillors and others, officers in the council and members of voluntary groups, are working hard to establish a Combe Valley Greenway, the key to which really is improving the quality of the canal bank. At the moment, it is very muddy, rutted, it's not very easy for people to use for cycling, and in the winter, it's not a really pleasant footpath for people to use because of the muddy conditions. I think if money could be spent, extra money could go into the scheme, then it would encourage people to use the canal bank to travelling to Marsden, to Slathway and beyond down into Huddersfield. Other things that I think that have been proposed, such as the work to ensure the preservation of the mill ponds and to look after and maintain the green space around the site, are good things within the development. I support the proposal for affordable housing and also for the contribution to education. So, although I've got some concerns about the access, overall, I do think this would be a positive development. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have David Story, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair, members. My name is David Story. I'm a Chartered Town Planner speaking on behalf of the applicant. As you've heard, on the 1st of November you had a full presentation from your officers and myself, and there was a debate that took place with members. During that debate, positive comments were made by members who saw the benefit of redeveloping this brownfield site. But you were ceded to a request by Councillor Bellamy, who had concerns about a matter unrelated to the site itself, regarding Stubbins, I'm trying to find the name of the Stubbin Road. And your officers have obviously investigated that. You've had the opportunity for a site visit. From the applicant's point of view, in terms of the highway improvements that are presented to you, they are significant in relation to this development, and that's as much as they can do in that respect. And as you've heard from your highway officers, they meet all requirements of the council. The application itself has been with the authority since August 2016, and we've worked closely with officers in respect of design issues, in respect of flood risk issues and technical issues relating to highways, to a point where you now have a scheme that has no objections from any statutory consultee. The development itself respects the historic heritage of the site, but sadly the building itself is no longer in a fit state to be converted. And indeed it's in a dangerous state, which is why an application has been submitted to building control for its demolition. And at the same time we're fully aware of the obligation in respect of the bats in the building, and a licence application has been also submitted to Natural England. I would hope, given what you heard last time and what you've heard now, that you will support the recommendation and we can restore this site and produce housing on a brownfield site. In terms of history, this scheme provides 55 units, and you'll see from your report in planning history that a scheme that involved the conversion of the existing mill and 9 lift-to-work units presented 120 units. So we're significantly less than that, and that gives you some sort of balance in terms of highway issues. And also bearing in mind that this was once a mill that was very active with HGV movements, etc. I think the conclusion is that you've got an improved situation here in highway terms, and a development that brings much needed housing to the area that will be of a quality and provide affordable housing as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Uller, Councillor Bellamy, then Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. I think this came to committee last month, and we actually requested for a site visit, and it really helped, certainly helped me this morning, because we got to ask questions around the traffic island and the widening of the road, and you've got to kind of like imagine that you're pushing it all back that way. I am actually in support of it, of the officer recommendation, but there were questions that Councillor Bellamy raised around the speed limit, and Councillor Walker's raised a concern around the contribution of the canal towpath. How realistic are both of those?
Councillor Bellamy.
I thought somebody were going to answer Councillor Waller's question before. Well, we've been told, obviously, that the speed limit can't be changed and it will stay at 40. As I said last time, I have nothing against the development itself in that mill. It is still that road, and I have still got some real concerns. Nobody ever does 40 round it. I nearly got wiped out by a skip van myself the other day, and believe me, it's frightening. I just really do think there needs to be something else on that road. Now, whether that can be, I don't know, rumble strips, maybe, something, anything to slow the traffic down. It's two blind bends. And I know you're going to open that entrance up, but you're still not going to be able to see round two blind bends. I really don't know how I'm going to vote on this one, to be honest, at the moment, and I'll wait and listen to others first, because I'm trying to balance it.
Thank you, Chair. I supported this application on the last meeting to defer it, because mainly on the access to improvement of the access to this location with the junction Manchester Road. This morning, while we were on the coach, the highway officer explained us very well the scheme to improve the junction, even the new right turn on there, which may never been before for centuries, and some speeding coming on the Manchester Road and other things. I think I'm happy with this improvement, the junction, access to the site. Can I ask Chair another thing? It's public open space provision, You say on-site or off-site, but this occasion, because the location of this site, the mill is right on the below, I think the public open space should be within that development, not off-site, which is the contribution 82,000, something like that. So I think the ward councillor, as Rob said, he is happy with this application to go ahead with some condition to improvement on some canal. I supported this application. I move it. Thank you.
Councillor Sims, that's been moved. Is anybody prepared to second that? Yes, second. Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I support the recommendation of the mill and the houses, etc. What I'm not supporting at the moment is the highway. I think there should be some more forward warning, both sides of that blind bend, robust warnings, probably visual markings on the road, and even as just been suggested, rumble strips, so it actually raises concerns and awareness that there is an entrance going to come out of there. And of course, with the number of houses, there's going to be more traffic coming out of there. That's what's come out for a long time. It's not big bucks, I don't think, but I really do think that we need some forward warnings, both sides of those blind bends. It can be paintings on the road which are more visible for a motorist or traffic warning. And rumble strips now are used very effectively in some of the roads in Barnsley, etc., where they're entering blind corners and visual blind bends going into villages, etc. So I would be happy to support it if we can have designate officers to discuss with the applicant whether or not some of the finance can be put into some more visual warnings on that road to substantiate that there is going to be an entrance and it will be used with more traffic. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor, did you want to come back? Finally.
Yeah, really just to support Ken on what he said. I think that, and I appreciate obviously that the speed limit is what it is, but there does need to be some sort of signage, or it would help if there was some sort of signage.
Okay. Yeah. I hear what you're saying about this issue around extra signage or lining. We have looked at the issue along Manchester Road at the junction and wider along the road. Our safety team have looked at these matters, and I understand the rationale and the logic that you're presenting around putting in signage or something like that, but it has knock-on effects along that element of Manchester Road, so that has been considered. Well, I suppose it's where you start slowing people down and then where they speed back up and how that all interreacts along the length of it. So we have taken that account. We have taken that. I don't think the applicant would have had any issue if we'd have just come to him and said it would be helpful to have signs and white lining. But the safety element of doing that is not justified, or it's the wrong thing to do. So our advice to you is the scheme that's been designed and tested as opposed to other elements.
Councillor Griffiths and then Councillor Richard.
Yeah, just to say that those bends were at one time 60-mile-an-hour bends, and we took it on the nose that it would be reduced to 40, and I'm sure that we could again take a speed reduction. And I'm concerned that we're making decisions about housing, which we know is in short supply, to do with acceptance of poor behaviour in cars.
I'm hearing from the rest of the committee a very positive, yes, let's accept this. Can we have something from the planners that goes equally positive and goes at least part of the way towards the concerns that the rest of the committee and I have? Because I've driven that road quite a few times and I know what speed will go on there unless something alerts people to the need to go easier.
I do hear what the committee is saying, and I think the reality very much is you deferred it on a highway safety type consideration. We went away and we looked at that. We didn't just defer it for a site visit. We went and discussed it with the engineers, the highway engineers and the safety engineers, the issues that were talked about. Because the things you're talking about today, you did talk about in the round at the last committee. So we have looked at that with the safety team and the engineers. Our advice to you is that's not the right solution. It will generate more issues. I think the reality is it's the total length of Manchester Road. You'd have to look at all of that section, not just the one around the site. So you've got a scheme that works. You're all pretty positive about the development, but you have to balance the issues here, guys and councillors. And I think the issue in front of you is very much that you have a scheme that's been tested and is safe. It does improve. I accept you're saying to me you want to go further, but the reality is this is the best solution for this junction, for this number of dwellings, for that site. So I do hear what you're saying, but I don't think I want to come back and say I can do it, because I couldn't promise that would be what I could achieve.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions? One abstention.
Approved.
Page 97, Helm Lane, Meltham.
Good afternoon, members. I am the case officer dealing with this application, Matthew Woodward. You'll be aware a site visit was carried out by committee this morning. So the site lies on the eastern edge of Meltham, beyond which lies upland countryside, which lies in the green belt. Adjacent to the site to the southwest lies a small tool manufacturing factory. Within 70 metres to the west of the site lies Meltham Cricket Ground. The site abuts a public right-of-way to the south, which connects the site to Broadland's public open space and playing fields to the west, and provides an elongated route to Meltham Greenway, which is approximately 180 metres to the south. The site is mostly grassland and it is a greenfield site. There is a small stretch of hawthorn hedge to the north, and there is an oak tree, but this lies beyond the south-eastern corner of the site boundary. There are a number of existing properties on the opposite side of the public right-of-way, which is also known as Mean Lane. The site forms the lower portion of a larger piece of provisional open land, or POL. The slide above shows the emerging allocation of the site, which is housing. So the site sits in the southern portion of this wider housing allocation in the emerging local plan. This now carries substantial weight in the decision-making process. The upper portion of the site, or allocation, or emerging allocation, has recently been developed by the same applicant, courtesy of Planning Permission 2014-93959. The development is nearing completion. So this application is submitted in full and comprises the following: the erection of 50 dwellings comprising a mix of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom units. All dwellings will be between 2 and 2.5 stories in height. 10 of the units on the western portion of the site comprise affordable housing. A new access will be formed, and this would link in with phase 1 to the north of the site. There is a link to the public footpath to the south. The application has been subject to pre-application discussions. At the time of the pre-application, officers identified that the eastern boundary was particularly sensitive given its proximity to the Greenbelt. A number of additional amendments have been made to the scheme, as detailed on page 100 of this committee report. This has resulted in the scheme being reduced from 52 dwellings down to 50. In terms of the proposed boundary treatment, the scheme includes the provision of a landscape strip along the eastern boundary, which aids in reducing the visual impact of the proposed development for users of the surrounding footpaths. It's acknowledged that housing would still be visible from the Greenbelt to the east, but it's considered that a condition relating to landscaping can successfully reduce the impact to an acceptable degree. The proposed layout generally follows the contours of the site in order to create a development that steps down in a consistent manner. The proposed dwellings are relatively simple in terms of appearance, and again they follow the same design ethos as phase 1. Proposed house types will be a mix of different types of units, both semi and detached. Some would have front projecting dormers and all would have pitch roofs. The materials proposed are artificial stone as used in phase 1. The varied character and appearance of the area and the materials used in phase 1 reinforce the acceptability of the design of this scheme. The slide above shows some indicative street scenes, just indicating the general appearance of the housing and the design. The proposed development does not include public open space. However, in this instance, it's considered appropriate to request an off-site contribution to the nearby Broadlands open space and playing fields. Broadlands is considered to be in an accessible location and can be accessed via the public footpath to the south. The highways impacts of the scheme are acceptable. in general terms, and particularly in terms of the impact on the capacity of the surrounding network. Highways DM originally raised some concerns with regards to parking, but these have been addressed through the submission of amended plans, and the parking that's now proposed meets the guidelines in the UDP. As detailed in the update, there is a technical matter to resolve relating to the turning head, and if members are minded to approve this application, it's requested that this matter be delegated back to officers in order that officers and the applicant can ensure that an acceptable scale of acceptable design of turning head is put forward and approved as an approved plan. In terms of other issues, the original officer committee report identified a potential issue regarding ball strikes and the proximity of the cricket pitch. Subsequently, the applicant carried out a ball strike assessment, which has now been assessed by Sport England, and as detailed in the update, they have now removed their initial objection to the scheme, because it's unlikely that ball strikes would occur from the cricket pitch and affect the development. In terms of drainage, the scheme includes a pump station, which will be located on the lower portion of the site near the public footpath. Landscaping is proposed to soften the impact of the pumping station, and the pumping station would subsequently be adopted by Yorkshire Water under separate legislation. Highways the drainage officer has been consulted on the scheme and raises no objections, subject to a planning condition. Again, in the committee report, there are details of the potential impact on wider ecological interests, particularly the South Pennine Moors Special Protection Area for Birds, which is 2.5 kilometres away. However, in this case, the applicant has demonstrated that there will be no impact in this case. There is a separate condition relating to wider ecological enhancement of the scheme. The applicant carried out a noise survey, which has been assessed by Environmental Health. There are no objections subject to additional monitoring, and the conditions recommended relating to a further noise survey. Whilst the committee report identifies some concerns from the nearby tool factory, officers are satisfied that noise has been satisfactorily addressed at this stage, and it's also acknowledged that this is a future housing allocation where, in broad terms, the provision of housing is considered acceptable. Therefore, a condition is recommended relating to the noise issue. Members should also note in the update there is some information concerning archaeology, that officers are satisfied that this can be conditioned in the event that planning permission is approved. Finally, the scheme is policy compliant in terms of infrastructure. Specifically, these are identified on the first page of the committee report relating to education, public open space, the provision of 10 affordable units on site, and there's also a recommendation that the 106 should cover maintenance of the pumping station until final adoption by Yorkshire Water. Overall, this is considered to constitute a sustainable development, and subject to deferral back to officers to ensure the correct size turning head, it's recommended that planning permission be granted subject to conditions and subject to section 106 as detailed in the report and subsequent updates. Thank you, Chair.
We have Mark Jones, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Mark Jones. I'm a Chartered Town Planner for Barrett and David Wilson Homes, the applicants. As you've heard today, our application is seeking consent for 50 dwellings, of which 20% would be affordable, meeting the Council's local planning policy, so that would be 10 affordable units on site. In the Kirklees UDP, it is a pole site, and in the forthcoming Kirklees local plan, it is allocated for housing. As you will see from some of the plans in front of you, the site is surrounded and contained on 3 sites by development to the north, west and south. And as the officer has explained, we have had detailed discussions during the pre-application stage and later on once the application was submitted to ensure that there was a strong that we will be proposing a strong landscape boundary to the east, and it will be very similar to what we've done on our adjacent site to the north. We consider it to be in a sustainable and accessible location, and during the course of the application we've made a number of amendments, one of which is that we have reduced the number of dwellings. And as I say, we're proposing a landscape boundary along the eastern boundary, and we've got a link to the public footpath to the south. We did undertake public consultation, we also met with local residents, and we also met with the adjacent business as well. Note that there's only 3 local representations received, so they're not objections, they're making comments which we have looked at. So as far as I'm aware, the council have not received any objections. We've listened and dealt with a number of comments from consultees during the process. I'd just like to explain that obviously we're the developer to the north of the site, and the aim is for this application and our existing site to the north to become one and linked. Same house styles, same materials, albeit this will all be in artificial stone, not the mix of artificial stone and brick as to the north of our site. And therefore it will be the same registered provider on site, so we are treating it as one site. Hopefully, if it's approved, there'll be a continuation in terms of the construction build, and it would result in kind of 3 areas of affordable housing, and therefore kind of like you to look at it in that way, because the registered provider who's currently on site wants to take these on as well, and obviously for management and maintenance purposes, we feel that across the site in three different locations that's acceptable. Yeah, thank you. And if you visited our existing site next door, you'll have seen the quality of the houses as well, the affordable houses. You can't really tell the difference. And also the affordable housing in this site is not tucked away in the corner or anything. It's very much in the middle of the site, and in terms of the integration with the other properties. So, notwithstanding this, the site is allocated 1,000 emerging...
Thank you. Your time's up.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Can I just say I'm happy to return to the chair if there's any questions.
You won't be needed. Councillor.
And
Councillor.
I do think that it links in from the first phase to the second phase. I totally accept that. I think there were concerns from Sport England originally. But obviously, a ball strike assessment's been done. There's no issues allocated for housing. Access just seems like there's no issues, and I don't think they've got any capacity issues. All in all, I am happy. I do know one of my colleagues is going to make a comment about the affordable housing, so I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really have problems with this overall as a site, and obviously we haven't really had many objections, but I do object to the fact that all the affordable housing is put on one row together like that, and I would like to see it pepper potted. I understand what the gentleman said about the fact that there's going to be 3 different sections of affordable housing, but I do not like that. It feels quite separated out, and I would really like to see something else done about that. I just want to say on the affordable housing bit under the recommendation, it says 5 affordable rent, 5 immediate, but split to be confirmed. So could that be quite different in the end? Could it be 10 immediate and 0 rent, for example, or how different could that be?
Our interim affordable housing position is that we're open to negotiation on tenure and mix. Our evidence base behind the local plan policy talks about a sort of roughly 50-50 split between tenure types. So we try and secure roughly 50-50 tenure types. If it was anything really different to what that says in that recommendation, we would need to discuss with the chair and probably bring it back.
To wind up, I mean, this particular application follows on from the first one. The first one, there's a little bit of, shall we say, fear by people, but I've heard nothing on this application whatsoever, not from any constituent in Meltham, and I am the ward councillor, along with 2 others for Meltham. So is somebody prepared to... Councillor Sims, you wish to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, this will go ahead, but it's obviously built on a wet plain, really, hence the pumping of water away from that site. The other thing I don't like is artificial stone, especially on a damp site. It'll just permeate up through it. Should be natural stone. The other thing I don't like, when you get a housing situation like this, next to a factory, an employment factory, it's always the factory that has to take the stick about noise and what have you. In fact, you know, the factory's there first. And when people buy houses next to a factory and a mill or whatever, they have to understand that there could be some noise. I think it's important that we don't penalise this factory unduly. If there's any noise abatement to be done, then some contributions should be done from the developer. Shouldn't all come out of the business there. But other than that, that's all I've got to say to you.
Can I just add to the fact that when the other houses have been nearly completed, they're on the edge of the Broadlands Wreck there. We've already had a complaint that the lights should be switched off earlier on the skate park. Well, I'm afraid. So I think you're always going to get somebody that's going to find something to complain about. But the skate park's been there long before the houses were ever built. So has this been moved and seconded? Yes. The amended recommendation?
Can I just point out there's an amended recommendation in the update which deals with the turning head?
Yeah, as per officer's recommendation.
All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions?
It's approved.
Page 135, and this is Bradley Road, Bradley, as well as Upper Quarry Road.
Thank you, Chair. Victor Grayson, Senior Planning Officer, Majors and Minerals Team. This is an application for outline planning permission with all matters reserved other than access for residential development. The site includes 32 Bradley Road, the unadopted lane between 32 and 34 Bradley Road, and a strip of land within the curtilage of 8 Bradley Road. And as seen on the site visit this afternoon, the site extends uphill away from Bradley Road to the electricity pylon in the northeast corner of the site as shown on this location plan. The site is 1.28 hectares in size. It slopes downhill from the northwest to the southeast and includes garages close to the site entrance which are in a poor condition. The site is not in a conservation area. There are no TPO trees within the site, however there are TPOs protecting trees to the west and north of the site. The site currently has vehicular access from Bradley Road via the previously mentioned unadopted lane. This image shows 32 Bradley Road, which is within the application site. This image shows the unadopted lane looking south out of the site towards Bradley Road. And this is another view looking from the site southwards. The surrounding uses are residential to the south and west, agricultural to the north, and there are railway lines and an embankment to the east. The site is provisional open land in the Unitary Development Plan, but is to be unallocated in the emerging local plan as amended by the August 2018 modifications. An indicative site layout plan has been submitted, showing 36 houses, all 3 and 4 bedroom units, in short terraces or pairs of studies. 32 Bradley Road would be demolished to accommodate the widened vehicular access from Bradley Road. The principle of residential development at this site is considered acceptable. Although the site is provisional open land, the site is to become unallocated in the local plan, and given this and other factors, residential development can be accepted here, as it was for a smaller scheme on part of the site in 2017, and that was for a scheme of 9 units on 0.6 hectares of land. Junction works are proposed in connection with the proposed development. These would include a new pedestrian refuge or island outside the site entrance, reductions to the sizes of existing lay-bys on the north side of Bradley Road, and an increase in the size of the lay-by on the south side. The plan on the screen also shows yellow box road markings and a cycle lane surfaced in red. There is a significant highway safety concern with this proposal. Currently, there is a single eastbound lane on Bradley Road outside the site. However, traffic queues in 2 lanes, often, especially at rush hour. While this situation is not condoned, it is acknowledged that this helps the flow of traffic towards the busy Bradley Road, Leeds Road junction to the east of the site. And just to explain what the concerns are with these diagrams, officers' concerns relate to the fact that of the 2 unofficial lanes, the southernmost lane is often stationary, whilst the other is often live, i.e. has moving traffic. Westbound vehicles turning right into the site risk collision with approaching eastbound traffic in the live lane, which the turning drivers would not be able to easily see, as shown in this slide. So if I just toggle between the 2, you can see the risk to westbound traffic turning right into the site as they try and cross the live lane of the 2 eastbound lanes. Vehicles turning through queuing traffic into a live lane is one of the major causes of injury accidents in Kirklees due to a lack of intervisibility. There is also a concern that even with a 5.5 metre carriageway width proposed between the north curb of Bradley Road and the new pedestrian island, there is a risk of vehicles mounting the curb, which would be hazardous to pedestrians. Highways Development Management officers have raised these as significant concerns, and a reason for refusal on highway safety grounds is recommended. The applicant has submitted financial viability information and has argued that the proposed development cannot provide any affordable housing, off-site public open space contribution or an education contribution, and that the development is unviable even without these provisions. A second reason for refusal is recommended on the grounds that the development would therefore not mitigate its impact. Although the Council's independent viability consultant has also concluded that the development cannot provide the required obligations, it is noted that the MPPF does not compel the Council to accept unmitigated impacts in light of this viability evidence, and the MPPF in fact states that the weight to be given to a viability assessment is a matter for the decision maker. Other planning matters are considered in detail in the committee report. Matters of detail and concern will be addressed at reserved matter stage or via conditions had the application been recommended for approval and then approved. One response from an occupant of a neighbouring property has been received. This raised a civil matter that the proposed development would not prevent from being resolved. Details of the Council's recent consultation on the Cooper Bridge Link Road scheme are provided in the committee update as background information only. Refusal of planning permission is recommended. Thank you.
We have Nick Willett, who's the agent.
Bradley Road has been the subject of a council road improvement scheme in recent years, designed to allow 1 lane of traffic only on the approach to the 3 lanes at Leeds Road, as you can see on that drawing. This scheme was also presumably designed to aid the safety of existing access points for traffic accessing and egressing Bradley Road. However, what's happening in reality is that 2 lanes of traffic are forming at peak times, and drivers are breaking the highway code by going on the hatched areas reserved for vehicles turning on or off Bradley Road, while others are breaking the law, including HGVs, by driving on the actual pavements. As can be seen on the aerial view, our proposed access has an adjacent, directly comparable junction, that of Upper Quarry Road, which also experiences the 2-lane queuing traffic. The Highways Department have referred to 1 accident at this junction in the last 7 years and say this is evidence that our proposed access will be unsafe because cars turning in and out would be going through 2 lanes of queuing traffic. So we have a situation whereby the Highways Department is condoning drivers breaking the highway code and the law, with regard to driving in hatched areas, cycle lanes and on pavements at the Upper Quarry Road junction, and yet the unauthorised two-lane traffic issue is being cited as a reason to refuse our application at the adjacent access. Now that surely can't be reasonable or fair, members. The National Planning Policy Framework says that proposals must have an unacceptable impact on highway safety if it is to be refused. If the 2 lanes of queuing traffic was causing an unacceptable impact on highway safety, presumably the Highways Department would have acted by now and enforced its own single-lane scheme. But it hasn't, and consequently there are no reasonable grounds to conclude that exactly the same arrangements for our access, with the same number of houses accessed from it, would not be unacceptable in highway safety terms. As such, we ask that in fairness, the application ought to be deferred to allow the committee to be informed why the Highways Department is not enforcing its own single-lane scheme funded by local taxpayers if an unacceptable highway safety issue does indeed exist.
30 seconds.
And secondly, if the highway safety issue at the junction of Bradley Road and Upper Quarry Road is not unacceptable, why is our client's application being recommended refusal at an identical junction immediately adjacent? Thank you.
Thank you. Members, Council.
Thank you, Chair. It's unallocated in the local plan. There's no Section 106 and there's no affordable housing. There doesn't have to be. Ultimately, for me, this comes down to a highway safety concern, and I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation.
Yes, Councillor Poole.
Jimmy, could you just respond to the points that the gentleman made? That'd be helpful.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, it doesn't. Well, two vehicles can queue, 2 normal-sized vehicles. So the odd HGV that would mount the curb, it wouldn't be for us to enforce. It would be for the police to enforce. So there are pros and cons. The actual fact that they do queue in 2 lanes means it doesn't queue so far back up Bradley Road. So there's an advantage and the disadvantage is that there is the odd vehicle bumps up. When they are queuing, as has been shown, it's not just cars that could cause an issue. It could be cyclists or motorbikes. So they're obviously not as wide a vehicle. Up Quarry Road's, yeah, it is slightly higher up, so they may not queue as often, even if it's only 50 yards up the road. Plus, it's an existing situation, so this would exacerbate the problem rather than making it any better. It's just it's another junction rather than the fact that there's one there, slightly further away from the traffic lights. It's an existing situation we can't do anything about. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Well, however we look at this, it's single lane there. It's not actually double lane because the double lane starts lower down. I look at this and I see it as a very similar situation basically as Manchester Road. But yet again, we've seemed to say this one's dangerous and that one isn't. If this is refused, is there any other usage for that land? Just a question.
Through you, Chair, the site would be unallocated in the emerging local plans, so potentially there's a variety of uses that could go in there if all the other relevant planning policies are complied with, neighbour amenity, highways issues. What that alternative use would be, we can't really speculate here, but there's no specific site allocation coming forward in the local plan for this site. And also it's not green belt and it's not proposed to be urban green space.
Councillor Sims and Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Chair. I can't understand this refusal on this site, to be honest. It's one of the widest and best roads in Kirklees. Sight lines will be good, and yet we're told that it's going to be refused. I've had planning applications for this number of houses on my small roads in Home Valley South, where the highways have not even worried about it. And yet here we've got a main highway that should be able to be engineered to take a development of this size, and we're just walking away from it and putting his hands up and saying there's nothing we can do. I just can't see that, so I'm really appalled that we can't look at an engineering solution to that highway to support some houses on this land. Thank you, Chair.
Logic makes me ask the question: if they're actually coming into 2 lanes, why aren't we looking at possibly putting some hatching down that can help people to know, don't go any further unless you're clear? The other half of it is, I thought there was planning permission already in place for, is it 6 houses or 7? 9. My maths isn't good today.
I've got to say that what I don't like is there's no 106, there's no affordable housing. It doesn't ring true to me, I'm sorry. Councillor Sokol.
Chair, can I stand? My understanding is the planning permission was given some time ago for 9 dwellings. You still stand that? Is the same developer?
Through you, Chair, yes, it was a development for 9 units approved in 2017 and the applicant was the same applicant as is proposing the current scheme.
Yeah, Chair, can I ask, do you think if the developer come back to renew that the planning permit for 9 dwelling, you think it should be okay on this road access? Yeah.
Through you, Chair, the council has determined that 9 units is acceptable there. Advice from Highways Development Management officers is that 9 is about the maximum that this site could accommodate before those highway safety concerns arise.
Somebody prepared to? I've already moved it. Is that seconded then? Officer's recommendation. Is that seconded? Nobody? I'll second it. All those in favour, officer's recommendation, please show. Against? Abstentions? Thank you.
Applications refused.
Page 157, Highgate Lane, Lepton.
Good afternoon. My name is Francis Davis and I'm the planning officer for this application. The application seeks retrospective planning permission for the formation of a pub garden with equipped play area. The pub garden is located to the north east of the Sun Inn and has been prior to being developed, hosted garages and a shed interspersed with unkept grass land. In particular, it's noted the application site is surrounded by and in close proximity to residential dwellings located along Rowley Lane, Sycamore Close and Highgate Avenue. It is advised that the application site benefits from previous planning permission to convert it to a car park associated with the Sun Inn, offering 10 parking spaces and 1 disabled bay. As existing, the site has a landscaped appearance, including sectioned floor areas consisting of wood chip, astroturf and vibrantly coloured soft surfacing associated with children's play areas. A close-boarded timber fence, approximately 1.8 metres high, delineates the application site from residential dwellings that neighbour their site, and downlights adorn the fence at regular intervals. The application has been assessed by planning officers and is considered to have an unacceptable impact on residential amenity. The proposed change of use from derelict land or indeed a car park is considered to be a significant intensification in use with greater potential to create noise nuisance. To this end, Environmental Health have advised that they have received complaints in relation to noise nuisance from the Sun Inn. Following an assessment of all the information, officers believe that the scheme would have an unacceptable impact on residential amenity, and on this basis recommend the application for refusal. A total of 9 public representations were received objecting to the application, and 22 representations were received in support of the application. Thank you.
We do have one speaker, that's Mrs Donna Brayshaw. There's also a handout.
Thank you, Chair.
Just wait 1 minute, please. I think we're waiting so we know what we're doing with this. We'll just hand this out. I think that should be handed around.
You can just hand it around. We've only got one copy. Hello everyone, Donna Brayshaw, landlady of the Sun. Since purchasing the Sun 8 years ago, it was a tired and run-down pub, and we were surprised at how little community spirit there was. Since then, we've worked tirelessly to bring it to the very centre of its community, doing things like introducing the community library into our snug after Lepton's library had to close, with books to borrow and 2 computers with free internet access. We also purchase and maintain the flowers in our village square, and do lots of fundraising events for local scouts, etc. We need to sustain and grow the business for years to come in an ever-changing marketplace. The Sun has been a pub since the early 1700s, long before it was a residential area. So after talking to lots of residents, we realised that people focused on safe places to take their children and grandchildren, and that there was nothing in our local area. So with this, we decided to extend our garden onto the scrub land with semi-derelict garages that have become a flightless paradise, and create a beautiful, safe, family-friendly area where dogs and smoking are not allowed for the safety of the children, and it is away from the main road. It has no impact on traffic or highway considerations. If anything, this reduces the need for local families to use their cars as they can walk to this facility. It is gated with full CCTV coverage, keeping everyone safe. We have lots of local support for the garden, as can be seen with hundreds of favourable comments on our social media. And although we do understand that a number of our neighbouring residents have concerns, a small number, of our neighbouring residents have concerns regarding noise, we are willing to work on any means possible to alleviate these problems. We will have strict times that the garden can be used, and at other times it is locked so that no one can gain access. With Kirklees Council's economic health and wellbeing strategy being to support sustainable business growth and to provide safer places to visit, we feel that we are improving facilities for recreation and play, providing good quality space with good visual amenity for residents. With this in mind, I ask that you vote to allow this facility to be enjoyed by families for many years to come. And thanks.
Members, Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, the Sun Inn is pretty much like a community sort of pub. What I was a little bit surprised at was maybe the lack of signage that's around. Please do not disturb our neighbours, please keep quiet, that sort of thing. And although, yeah, people may not take notice of that, I think that the signage could have been a little bit better. And if we are minded to accept this, then there would have to be certain conditions. Certainly the time and maybe some sort of temporary permission just to see how things go. Maybe a pub or a beer management sort of plan just to take us through the timeline of the openings and closings, certainly the opening times, and better signage.
Sorry, can I just, for the benefit of members of the public, the notice which has been handed round is a photograph taken from the south, from a bedroom, and it says that's from our bedroom window. We are the house direct your beer garden, so if we have no problem, that could help.
Councillor McGuinn.
Yeah, I tried to explain before when I was declaring my interests. I've known Donna and Carl for a few years. They have taken a pub which had a really bad reputation and turned it into the hub of the community. They do fantastic work there. I've actually used a golf course with my grandchildren, so I've got extensive experience. I won, by the way, so it's a wonderful facility, but I don't think that's the issue here. When the application first came forward, I spoke to Francis Davis on the phone, and he explained he was minded to pass the application. That's no secret. And so I set out to ask the residents of the area what they thought. And there were one or two supportive people around the area, but there were quite a number of residents who felt they'd been under assault during the summer months, from objects being thrown over, from the noise in the garden. Now, I'm not saying that it could be mitigated against. I accept what Donna's saying. It could be mitigated against. It's put me in a very difficult situation because I was trying to support the officer, trying to get some mitigation like noise control and times of operation. I think we were both in agreement on that could be possible. But the next thing that happened was that the Environment Agency came back and said, as far as they was concerned, that it was an unacceptable level of noise and nuisance to the area. It's put me in a difficult situation because I was trying genuinely to support them, and because I can see that it's a great facility for kids in the area. So I'm not going to make any recommendation on this. As I say, it's put me in a difficult situation because my grandchildren have used the pub. They love it. They love the garden area. They love being able to play golf. It's nice and secluded. Fantastic facility. But you have to take into. I'm asking members to help me because I can't give I can't say which way I would vote on this because I've been a ward councillor and been so involved in it, been involved with Donna and Carl, Donna and Carl, and the residents of the area can see both sides of it. I think I need help and guidance from other councillors on this. I'm not going to. I'm sorry to not be able to give a definitive answer to what I think. I'm stuck in a dilemma, trying to support the pub and trying to support the residents of the area. I'll have to take a neutral stance on it. It sounds like I'm copping out, but it's because I'm so heavily involved in it. I've been so heavily involved from the beginning, trying to help Francis and trying to help Donna and trying to help the residents, and I'm in a dilemma. Hopefully people who've been in this situation before can give me an answer. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Chair, I agree with my colleagues, yeah. The site, the area, I'm really impressed. It's a well-designed facility for children and the parents. It doesn't look like a beer garden. It looks like parents bring their children to play there. I think I should support that because this is not a pub. It's a other facility there, public facility. If you look on the from the side on representation. We got only 9 representation against that, and 22 are in favor actually. There must be local people who are there. So I agree with my colleague, Councillor Sheikh Allah. If we consider to put in some condition or timing condition or temporary, I'm not quite sure, temporary will work or not. So it should come from, maybe, I don't know, we like it, put a temporary condition or just a permanent basis. I'll leave it.
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say that I would support this? I would ask for a change of recommendation. Although it's retrospective, which is a bit naughty, and they shouldn't have done it just like that. But the quality of what they've done is good. The quality and look of the pub now is brilliant at the side of what you see a lot of pubs at now. It looks to be on the up and not on the down, and that's a good idea. It's a kids' play area. I can't understand our environment not encouraging kids to be able to play. And as I've said on other applications, here we've got the pub were there first. It were there before any of them houses were built there. And here we get in, you know, those houses being built and stopping a business plying for the trade by complaints. Before it was a rubbish tip, really. Those garages, it were really bad state, and they've done a good job in bringing it back to life. What, of course, has got to happen is some conditions on it to control the use, and I can understand that's the support we could give to Bernard and his constituents, that I would be advised, but I would think somewhere around about 8 o'clock on a summer's night for that garden would be reasonable. And if the applicant's prepared to do that, and also be prepared to make sure that live music isn't appropriate on that piece of land there, then I think we could come to some agreement in allowing this to go through, Chair. So I will support my fellow councillors there on moving that it's accepted, but with these conditions, and that officers go, if it's passed, go and talk to them and sort the conditions out with them and get it sorted, Chair. Thank you very much.
Councillor Richards.
Thank you. It's been like a walk in the past today, because Donna and I started on planning about the same time, and although I don't do planning very often, we were going, oh, do you remember? And one of the things we remembered was a certain pub on Holmfirth Road that asked for a straight beer garden, no kids playing, and it was going to be open till 9. And I've been asking, no one seems to be finding big problems with it. From what I can gather, 8:30, the last of the drinks go out. And after that, people are expected to go in the pub, not stay outside. If that sort of planning can go on, I think this could be a fantastic added element to both the pub and the community. And it's also quite interesting that there's 20-odd people in favour and not huge numbers against. So I'm going to suggest possibly towards 8 o'clock as your finishing time, but hope that this helps the whole community.
Yes, Councillor Uppel.
The only thing I just wanted to add, I think Councillor Ull has already said this, is that I think we'd have to look at it on a temporary basis, really. You know, I won't want it to be permanently, just to see how residents would potentially be impacted by it.
Yes, I mean, I was going to suggest it's, you know, it's a trial for a trial period with certain conditions. And it strikes me as well, I'm a little surprised that the parish council was so opposed to it, and yet nobody's here from the parish council. But, I'm talking about of normal members. You would have been, no, without being councillors. I think you knew what I meant. And I mean the pub. Yes, I do recognise the fact. I've been there since 1700. Goodness gracious me, over 300 years. So, yes, the actual refusal, that's a bit strong. So I think a trial period, and it's been suggested, it's been blowing in my ear, you know, with regard to a trial period, they could work with the council and see how that goes. So just how we want to frame that, if you'd like to come in.
Thanks, Chair. And I do have to say, I think even though we did recommend it against, it is balanced because it does do an awful lot of good in the community, and we do acknowledge that. Okay, so picking up where members were, temporary planning permission, my advice is that it runs till the middle of next summer, because it's not going to really be tested until the weather improves. But equally, I think picking up Councillor Uppall's point, if the management arrangements and the hours and signage aren't effective, then it needs to be drawn to a conclusion rather than 12 months. So that's why I would suggest that we go to end of June, beginning of July, or do you want to go to the end of July? I'll leave that to you. Management plan, that means that the owners of the pub are responsible for the behaviours and the order of the facility, and we have a strategy in place that they will adhere to. And signage to be erected. There is some signage there for within the beer garden area, but signage to be good neighbours and so on. And then it finishes all people to have left the facility by 8 p.m. So that's what I picked up. Is that? Do you want to confirm?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. The signage, the time, the permission, and that was really bad.
So you're moving that, Councillor. Is that seconded?
No, can I just say one? When myself and Francis were talking about times, I think we were talking a lot earlier, weren't we? That just about.
Councillor Will, I said thought you said you were just sitting and waiting to see what people said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, I think earlier on when we were suggesting we're passing it, we were looking at an earlier time of finishing.
I think 8 o'clock's come forward. If you don't like 8 o'clock, you can vote against it. That was proposed by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Sims.
8 o'clock, yeah.
All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstention.
Can I just clarify that that decision is delegated back to officers to agree a trial period? Is it to the end of 6 months? 6 months, end of July. A management plan for the owners, signs, and all at a time, 8 p.m. Okay.
So that's that. So page now 169, which is detached dwelling adjacent Spring Lane, Holmfirth.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Hurst, Case Officer for the application. This application seeks reserved matters for a single detached dwelling. The matters under consideration are appearance, landscape, layout and scale. The site is on a junction between Spring Lane, and Liverpool Bank Road, with access being onto the bottom of Spring Lane. The site received outline permission in 2016 and a separate reserve matters approval in 2017, allowing for development to commence. Development has commenced on site, however not in accordance with the approved plans. The current application seeks to normalise this breach. The current plan shows the approved scheme, not that currently under consideration. If you note the garage layout on the left-hand side, and also the parking to the front. This image shows the now proposed scheme, with the garage moving to this side, a living room window here, and the parking being slimmed down. Just in regards to the parking layout, while a reduced area, officers are satisfied that it can accommodate sufficient off-road parking and turning. In regards to the window, this is located approximately here and would result in a habitable room window being closer to the shared boundary. This would be the window here, and here is an outdoor seating area for the neighbouring resident, Somerton. Officers acknowledge that this relationship, as you can see here, would allow overlooking onto Somerton's outdoor seating area. The proposal would not overlook Somerton's house itself, which is located behind the photographer in this picture. And you can see there's the proposed dwelling and the seating area. To mitigate the overlooking concerns, the proposal includes details of a 1.8 metre high timber boundary fence along the shared boundary. This has partly been erected on site. This image shows the view from inside the property of the proposed living room, with the sitting area being approximately on the lower ground level there. The principal and general appearance of the dwelling have been established through the past applications. For the proposed variations, officers are satisfied with the alterated parking arrangements. Turning to overlooking, subject to the boundary fencing being erected, which can be secured via condition, officers are satisfied that there will be no harm to neighbouring residents. Officers therefore recommend approval with nothing further to add, Chair.
We have some speakers. We've also got some handouts to go with the speakers, so you're handing out both. We've got Jill Hayfield first. Jill, which was your one with the photographs?
So you're
My name's Jill Hayfield. My home borders this new development. Chair, members of the committee. Spring Lane, adjacent to the development, is used as a rat run between the Greenfield Road and the Woodhead Road. Around the site is a narrow, obstructed by parked cars on a regular basis and restricted footpath. Children attending the local junior school, only 350 metres away, negotiate this route twice a day. Please will you look at the photographs on the reverse, all taken within 15 minutes this Monday morning. The area allocated for parking and manoeuvring is much reduced from the already approved plans when the garage was on the opposite end and is now akin to the previous scheme that was refused permission. Being very close to a blind corner at the junction with Lip Hill Bank Road, access to Spring Lane, where the road narrows, makes manoeuvring in and out of the site awkward and potentially dangerous. There is insufficient room for visitors to enter, manoeuvre and exit without reversing onto Spring Lane, and no provision made for delivery vehicles to park without obstructing the highway. Home Valley Parish Council has objected to the application due to insufficient space for manoeuvring and safe access and in and out of the site. Considering the constricted nature of the site and problems regarding parking highlighted here and previous applications, the planning officers should have referred these changed plans to the Highways Department for their comments. The objections to the development by the Home Valley Parish Council should be supported. Within our garden and 1 metre from the boundary are 2 mature and now rare elm trees, unidentified by Kirklees trees during their inspection. Many mature trees have been lost from the immediate locality in recent years, and these trees and the biodiversity that they support are significant local amenity and important to our quality of life. Sadly, sometime in the recent past, where they overhung the development, the trees have been severely and badly lopped. Their roots extend well into the development and could be damaged during groundwork, damage that could not only affect the health of the trees but also their stability. A permeable surface will also be needed for their irrigation. Neither the applicant, agent or planners have made any provision for the preservation of these rare elm trees. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The dwelling has not been built to the previously approved plans that show the garage position where the lounge now is. We have no objections to this original arrangement. The repositioned lounge, the main primary habitable room, is now overbearing and overlooks from a substantial height part of our garden, destroying our privacy and amenity. It has full-height glass opening doors only 3.5 metres away and 1.9 metres higher than from where we sit out in the garden. It's suggested that planting or a wooden fence is erected for screening, but we consider these proposals unsatisfactory. If planting was a serious option, why has part of the hedge already been pulled down in front of the lounge? Viewed from our garden, a wooden fence is inappropriate, overbearing and has very limited durability. Planning enforcement have clearly demonstrated they will not take any action enforcing planning infringements, so we're rightly worried transgressions regarding the fence will not be adhered to either. Leave us in the exposed position shown on the photographs. Consequently, the logical solution meeting the requirements of appropriateness and durability is heightening the existing boundary retaining wall, stepping it down where overlooking is not an issue. Whatever method of screening is adopted, it should be extended the whole length of our boundary to avoid any transgressions. Its position and height must be precisely shown and dimensioned. We had no objections to the layout of the approved plans, but this revised arrangement is unacceptable and should not be allowed. As can be seen by comparing the two drawings, referring to the approved plans, even at this late stage, would not be too difficult, as only the ground floor is affected. From the outset, both developer and architect have knowingly built the house without permission to plans that are only now being considered by the committee. Neither planning nor enforcement departments have taken any action. Unfortunately, this not only encourages future violations, but also brings the whole planning process into disrepute with the general public, which we assure the committee do not wish to see. By refusing permission for this application, the already approved plans will be reverted to, not only resolving the issues of privacy and parking, but demonstrate to these and other developers that unauthorised development is taken seriously and will not be tolerated. Thank you.
Councillor Nigel Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. As I understand this case, an application was approved that the neighbours were happy with. The owner then changed his mind and instructs his architect and his builder to swap the living space with the garage. Work starts on site, but no planning application to amend is submitted. Neighbours notice the difference and complain to the planning service. Planning enforcement do not take any action, and the build is allowed to continue because planning think the change is okay. A planning application is eventually made. Notices don't appear to have been posted on site. Officers reach a position well before the public consultation period closes. I asked for this to come to committee, and even that was rushed. I didn't expect it to come so quickly. I wanted to give time to try and find some common ground, and yesterday I met the architect and the neighbours on site to discuss it. Today I received confirmation that the applicant is not for changing his position. So if you are minded to approve this, can I ask that any approval is subject to an agreement to change the proposed boundary treatment from a fence to a wall to replace the existing retaining wall at an agreed height? Thank you.
We have Emma Hanks, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
The site currently has full planning permission for a detached dwelling, which was granted by Kirklees Metropolitan Council in March 2018. Previous to this, the outline planning was also granted in 2016 for a single detached dwelling. After starting on site in early October of this year, our client informed us that they had changed their mind on the position of the garage and wanted to reposition this to where the lounge had originally been proposed. A site visit by ourselves was carried out immediately, and we advised the client that the changes would require further consent. Drawings were amended and a conversation with the planning officer, Nick Hurst, was had, and a scheme then submitted to cover the alterations that were proposed. I would like to point out at this stage that our client was advised if they carried on site that they were out of order. I am not in control of their business, what they do on site. So I'd just like to point that out. The application has been going through the required processes and an objection from the neighbours at the house at Somerton was lodged. We were able, in conjunction with Councillor Patrick, to meet yesterday after many attempts by ourselves to meet with them and go through their concerns. Those being that of the overlooking nature of the habitable room of the lounge and it being able to overlook their garden and their house. A timber fence had been proposed on both the current approved application together with the application we are discussing today. As just mentioned by the neighbours, they were happy with the previous application, which also had a timber fence erect. That was the proposal. As you will see on your site visit today, together with the photographs that have been shown to you, there is no overlooking of the gardens of the house at Somerton from the proposed dwellings. The neighbours have also raised concerns over the dry stone wall at the southwest boundary within the proposed site, and having checked with their solicitor Bayliss Mills yesterday, I am told by our client there is no mention on their deeds of who is responsible for this dry stone wall, albeit our client has agreed that reasonable and localised repair were always intended to be carried out, as the wall does retain in part their land, and that this is an element of a private matter between our client and the neighbours of Somerton. I hope the committee can see that by changing the position of the garage and lounge that no further harm is being caused, as this is mitigated by a timber fence screening between the two gardens, and it is acceptable, and that no overlooking of Somerton is present once this fence is permanently in place when the development is complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Sims. Councillor Richard.
Thank you, Chair. We've been on site today and that wooden fence is diabolical. I wouldn't want that in front of the house of a building of that calibre, and I wouldn't want it as a neighbour overlooking my property. If you looked diligently, you could see a boundary wall lower down below that fence, a stone wall, which I would imagine belongs to the developer because it's upholding the land above where the development is. I would like to see a condition on this plan, if we're going to give it the okay, that that wall is built with natural stone to a higher degree, to something like 4, 5 foot, and done professionally and properly with natural stone all along the bottom of that site. And after talking to the constituent on the other side, they would be prepared to plant on their side to help with the screening. And I think that would be a good course to go. It is different to what it was before because of the lounge and the vision and the difference between putting a car in at one side and the other. And I think if this compromise could be done, then we could get along with this plan and get it sorted out. It's wrong, really, I think, that developers change their mind without telling us in planning. We don't mind them changing their mind, but you know they should come and talk to us before they actually start it, and then it won't be retrospective in a way. So if I would support this development, if we get assurances of a condition that that wall is built at the expense of the developer to a premium standard in stone on that boundary, and then I would be happy with presenting this to go ahead.
Councillor Singh, just got to clarify, you said 4 or 5 feet. That turf fence is at the moment is 6'6", 2 metres. So, you know...
to agree, but if you stood inside that building and you could see, I think a wall, you know, I'm 6'1.5", I think a wall somewhere here would be suffice. Planted in the front, they could put some, I know this couple are very much into nature, and I think they could do it right. But also, the permeable has got to happen on that car parking spot at the top, because those trees, if they're short of water, they'll die. And they will pull water off that hillside. And they will already be restricted by the foundations of that new house. And that should have been dealt with at the first planning permission, but it wasn't. And I think it was an officer decision. I don't think it came here. But there we go. Permeable surface on there with the wall, and then I would recommend that, and I would support that.
Thank you. Councillor Richards.
I'm absolutely astounded by that wall, that fence. It's the most horrific thing I've seen in a long time. I must admit, if it was in front of my sitting room, I'd be having a blow fit every time I went in the room. I don't know why he's moved, because if you look at where the car is now going to be, the car has got a fantastic view over... I lost my bearings on where we were, but the Home Valley. It really is a pretty, lovely view. If you look over the fence, you haven't a quarter of the view. You haven't anything like a nice view. So, you know, why this has happened, I don't know, but I would prefer to see the owner being told to put it back to where it was before.
Councillor.
I think the fence doesn't help. It's really, you know, it's not that very nice. When I stepped in, it was the fence is the first thing. Although I think Nigel and Ken have summed it up really well. I think that there needs to be some sort of compromise here. I don't think that fence is adequate, but they're more than entitled to keep it because it's permitted development. I think it's a screening issue more than anything, and I think certainly what Ken said, I'm happy to support some of that. But that fence, oh God.
Yeah, I do believe that the fence is out of character with the place, and I think it would be a compromise, and I would quite willing to support that. But we've got it proposed and seconded, have we? That with the wall, as per Councillor Sim's recommendation. Who seconded it? Was it Councillor Ola? Yeah. All those in favour, please show. Against? 2.
Sorry, thank you, members.
All those in favour then, again, please. They're otherwise disturbed. Yes, as per.
7, 8, 4.
Against?
1.
So, thank you, members. So just to clarify on that, that is recommendation of approval with an additional condition for a boundary wall. Just note on the fence, I think that was just an indicative example of what it would look like. That would not have been the end product, but just an indicative screening. But yes, take members' comments on board, and we would look to impose a condition for details to come in regards to a stone wall, approximately 5 foot in height, details to be agreed between officers and members if so wish. Cheers. Thank you.
That's already.
We'll move on then to page 181, Netherley Drive, Marsden.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks the erection of 5 detached dwellings. The site is accessed off Netherley Drive, which itself is accessed off Mount Road. It is allocated as provisional open land within the Unitary Development Plan and safeguarded land within the local plan. Just for clarification, both those allocations extend to this field as well. So as well as the red line, it includes a larger area. The dwellings would be accessed from a private drive from Netherley Drive. There would be 2 housing types, a 2-storey detached 5-bed, and a split level 2-storey and 3-storey to the side and rear 5-bed as well. This image shows the typical levels of the site, with the properties here fronting onto Mount Road, and with me being here on Old Mount Road overlooking the site, with it being between here, and not the ones with the cows in. So this field here. This image is taken from Butley Reservoir just to show the kind of scale and impact it would have. So it's this location here, with those bungalows being evident in the previous two photos. So it's from Netherley Drive here to there. The report in front of members outlines the local planning authority's considerations on the proposal. The site is allocated as provisional open land within the UDP and safeguarded land within the local plan. However, it is also within 250 metres of the South Pennine Moors Special Protection Area and South Pennine Moors Special Area of Conservation. Each are European protected sites. Furthermore, the proposal exceeds the thresholds of the SSSI impact zone. Because of this, it's had to go through an ecological appropriate assessment. The implications of this is the NPPF says when appropriate assessment is undertaken, the presumption in favour of sustainable development does not apply. While the council is unable to, and then therefore the tilted balance for assessing applications doesn't either. While the council is unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, because the site has been through appropriate assessment, the tilted balance therefore does not apply through the presumption of sustainable development. Officers acknowledge that the development would provide housing at a time of need. However, the benefits of this are limited, as 5 dwellings on the site area of half a hectare is not considered an efficient use of land. In these circumstances, the benefits of the application do not justify the loss of provisional open land without the tilted balance applying. In terms of details of the proposal, officers hold objections over the design and appearance of the development. Just going back to this image, the 3-storey side elevations of the split-level dwellings would be rising in unison along there, and then the 2-storey dwellings sited high above the properties there. There is also concerns relating to drainage of the proposal and the lack of public open space. Because of these objections, officers recommend refusal for the proposal with nothing further to add, Chair.
We have Amanda Tattersall.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. We are pleased that officers have recommended the planning application be refused for local plan and drainage reasons, which were covered in our overall objection. We would like to take the opportunity to highlight other of our objections which are not provided as a reason for refusal of the application. Land instability. 2018 NPPF says planning policies and decisions should contribute to and enhance the natural and local environment by preventing new and existing development from contributing to, being put at unacceptable risk from, or being adversely affected by unacceptable levels of soil, air, water or noise pollution or land instability. Further reiterated in the local plan in paragraph 18.1, we have brought to the Council's attention the risk of land instability. Approving the application without considering this issue would bring the risk of land instability closer. British Geological Survey classifies the land as a Level D landslide hazard, with significant potential for slope instability with relatively small changes in ground conditions. The application does not address the moderate and high-risk potential for landslides shown within its GEO report. Importantly, no intrusive ground investigation has been carried out. There is no evidence that the development will not increase this hazard to the properties below or that it will undergo investigation in the future. It needs to be shown that development won't produce instability. Springs and drainage. The site is boggy with standing water. There are underground springs. Historically, there were wells on the site and there are more wells in the vicinity. The water network map shows a water source crossing the site which has not been addressed. The following factors are a hazard to new and existing properties below at Mount Road, and especially when considered in combination: unstable land, underground springs, marshy land with standing water, steep slope, clay-rich shore with shrink-swell scenarios. Highways. On the original planning application in 2015, Kirklees Highway Department said that visibility displays at the Mount Road junction are not in accordance to standard, and any intensification at the Netherley Drive Mount Road junction would likely result in an adverse impact on highway safety. Importantly, the department said that speed surveys on Mount Road would be required and that there were speeding vehicles. The local plan
30
notes
seconds.
that improvements will be required at Mount Road, Netherley Drive. There has been no speed survey on Mount Road. The report states that highways are satisfied that the traffic generated from 5 dwellings would have to have a materially harmful impact upon the local highway network. We disagree with this assumption as the size of the development should not be underestimated. It is for 5 five-bedroom properties with a high number of cars associated with it and a footprint for 25 parking spaces. We consider that further development in this already intensified
Thank you.
area...
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I did have some email conversations with Nick regarding this application because I have got concerns, which I think is mentioned actually in the report. I think Nick's done actually a really good job with this, and I want to thank him for that. I know he's been chasing up drainage reports and all sorts of things, and a lot of them haven't come back, and I know he's done a lot of work. The lady that spoke then, yeah, she's a few concerns which I know aren't mentioned in the refusal itself, and some of them I do also have concerns with. But I'm more than happy to remove, to move officer's recommendation of refusal for this.
Any further speaker?
I'll second that, Chair. Thank you.
Any further speakers? No. That's moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Did you not vote? Oh, you're abstaining, right.
Applications refused.
Page 207, and it is land off Burn Road, Birch and Cliff.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Adam Walker. I'm the case officer on this application. The application site, as you can see on this aerial photograph, is this field, which is off Burn Road in Birchincliffe. It slopes down from the north and from the south to where it meets a watercourse that crosses the site. There's an area of protected woodland to the west of the site. The application seeks outline consent for residential development, with the point of access the only matter being applied for. Members are therefore only considering the principle of development and the proposed single point of access off Burn Road. The site's allocated as provisional open land in the UDP, and it's part of a wider housing allocation in the emerging local plan. Earlier this year, this committee has considered 2 applications on the fields to the north, 2 separate outline applications for residential development, and the committee resolved to approve those. This planning just shows the housing allocation in its entirety. The purple block is the proposed application site. The blue one and the red one are the applications which I've just referred to, which members have resolved to approve. There's planning permission for 95 houses on the green blocks of land, which Harron Homes are currently building out. And there's 2 other applications for 4 and 3 houses, respectively, on 2 other parcels. So given the emerging allocation, the principle of development on the land is considered to be acceptable. The 3 sites represent a relatively significant proportion of the remaining housing allocation, and officers consider that these 3 sites should be considered in the context of a master plan for this part of the remaining housing allocation, and that would include in relation to calculating planning contributions. At the September committee, there was quite a lot of discussion about the highway improvements that are due to take place in the area and that are connected with the Harron Homes development for 95 houses. Those improvements have been set out again in your report. The site plan shows a single point of access off Burn Road. Initially it was proposed that there be 2 points of access, but there were concerns with that, The scheme has been amended, so it's just a single point of access, priority junction onto Burn Road, and highways are satisfied with that access. You can see the housing layout, which is purely indicative at this stage. It's showing 20 houses. Number of dwellings is, however, reserved for future approval. We'll need to take into account various constraints of the site, including the existing watercourse, Yorkshire water infrastructure, and the topography of the site. I'll just raise one other issue. In the report, officers have suggested the creation of a link from the site through this area of woodland to the recreation ground. There's already a public right-of-way running through this woodland, so the link could connect to that, and then you would then be able to get access through to Halifax Road and the services and amenities there, bus stops, shops, etc. And it does also link to Yew Tree Road, where there are bus stops as well. So there are a number of benefits to providing that link, including enhancing the accessibility and sustainability of the development. The Police Architectural Liaison Officer has expressed some reservations with such a link, so it will have to be carefully designed to mitigate those crime concerns. In summary, the principal residential development on the emerging housing allocation is acceptable, and the proposed point of access is also acceptable. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Speaker with Hamish Gledhill, who's the agent.
Thank you, Chair. The officers explained already about the amount of development in the area and the planning history in the area, and it explains that the site in front of you today is part of a much larger housing allocation in the emerging local plan, and that the proposed development is one of the last pieces of that larger allocation, most of which is either being built at the moment or is shortly to be built. As set out in the officer's report, the permitted development around Burn Road will substantially alter the character of the area, and therefore this additional development will not significantly harm the character of the landscape. Whilst it is acknowledged that there are a number of constraints on the site, the officer's report confirms that the applicant has submitted information to satisfy flood risk, drainage issues, as well as air quality, ecology and highways. Notably, a speed survey has been carried out, which proves that the visibility displays on Bird Road are more than adequate for the traffic on the road. There have been no objections to this planning application, so we would respectfully ask you to approve this application, which will enable the applicant to kind of catch up with the other landowners in the area and to bring forward a comprehensive scheme for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor, you're not so. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair, for reminding me the name. Yeah? He didn't come back. I thought he might come back. Yeah. Can I say, Chair, I think as we look into the details of previous application, I think we all approved on the previous application on this site. I don't think it will be, or I don't think we can justify to refuse this application. So we have to approve this one. I think I don't see any reason not to approve it. So I move it. Thank you.
Moved. Is that seconded, Councillor? All those in favour, please show. Oh, wish to speak? Certainly.
I've just been asked to speak to you. I just wanted to say, I know that officers consider the principle of development to be acceptable, and that access is the only matter, or was the only matter. However, I've noted that with the 20 houses that are planned for this particular site, when taken in conjunction or with the aggregate sum of the other two sites, it's a total of 142 houses, and I believe that's overdevelopment of the site as a whole, so I'm proposing that it be refused. That's what I've been asked to say, I'm afraid. Is that what you think?
That's your opinion.
Is that what you think? Is that your view? No, this is what I've come here as a subject. This is something I've been asked to convey. Is that?
Well, you're not really a delegate, you're a member, and you have to express your view.
Oh, right, okay, well, in that case, I'm not saying anything, then I can't comment. Okay.
It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions? 2.
Application's approved.
And finally, 9 Inglewood Avenue, Birkby. Page 207. Yes. Oh, sorry. 227.
Thank you, Chair. I've acted as case officer on this application. It's for extensions and alterations at 9 Inglewood Avenue and has been requested by local ward councillor, Councillor Eastwood. The site was seen by members earlier today and represents fire damage detached property in a large plot, and the following are some photographs. So that's the front of the property that shows the areas that are damaged and the condition of the property at the moment. This is from the rear, showing the extent of the damage, where the fire was, and highlighting the extent of the footprint. And this is an image from Google Street View that shows the relationship between the two properties that members observed out on site today. So the application seeks a contemporary approach to the redevelopment of the site. The plot is shown on the screen there, largely retain the same footprint. A new drive will be formed off Inglewood Avenue with parking to the front of the property, along with a garden area to the front and also to the rear. So this is the design of the proposal. It would involve raising the roof by 1.25 metres with large sections of glazing. Natural stone would be on the ground floor, white render at first floor level, and then a zinc roof in the roof area. A dormer would be formed at the frontage and also to the rear, along with 2 terraced areas. In terms of key matters for consideration, members have a full and detailed report in front of them. However, in summary, the design is considered to be acceptable for Inglewood Avenue, which is made up of a mixture of designs and styles. Turning to residential amenity, the closest property is number 7, Inglewood Avenue, and a further representation has been received, which is set out in the committee update. The impact in relation to number 7 and other surrounding properties is considered to be acceptable, and the overall height would retain the existing eaves, which helps to mitigate that. In terms of overlooking, there are some windows proposed on the side elevation. There are existing windows on the side elevation of the property, so there is an existing relationship there. We're proposing the condition that these windows on the side would be obscurely glazed. As I've said, there's sufficient space for parking, and the application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Speakers, Chair. Malcolm Sizer. Malcolm Sizer.
Could I have the street scene elevation up, please, Neil? That's it. Yeah, cheers. I'm acting on behalf of clients and their objection to the application. They live at number 7, the bungalow, immediately to the left of the application property. On the screen is a plan showing at the top the relationship of the 3 properties, 7, 9 and 11, as it currently exists, and at the bottom the proposed relationship. You will note the closeness of the 2 properties, my client's bungalow and the application property. I'm pleased to note that regarding issues raised, officers in their recommendation for approval are requiring that overlooking windows are obscurely glazed and that a full privacy screen is provided to the front to the first floor terrace. However, my clients maintain their objection to the plans because of the adverse impact the proposals will have on the street scene generally, and particularly on their living conditions. It is felt that what is currently an appropriate relationship between numbers 7, 9 and 11, stepping up the rising ground, will be broken by the proposed increase in height. Number 9 will have an over-dominant presence, especially given that it steps forward from a client's bungalow. Matters will be made worse by the enlargement of the front porch, which will further intrude on the outlook from my client's main bedroom and living area. You'll see from the officer's report there have been a number of applications submitted previously. In 3 cases, appeals against the council's refusal have been dismissed. In respect of the most recent appeal, the inspector felt that the proposal would have a dominating and overbearing impact on my client's property and the outlook from the bedroom and living room windows. Whilst I concede that the adverse impact of the present proposal is not as severe, it is still felt that it is such that permission should be refused. My clients welcome proposals to restore the property, but feel that, as with all previous applications, too much is proposed. I would ask you to refuse the application. Thank you, Chair.
One more speaker, Chair. Mr. Iqbal, who is the agent.
My name is Mr. Iqbal. We're the acting agents on the application. We've undertaken extensive dialogue on this application with the local authority, and we've been involved with a historic application also submitted in 2014 for consideration. The application was ultimately withdrawn because it was no longer needed by the applicant. Historically, the applications which have been addressed on the site have been to demolish the existing structure and put in place a new dwelling which is significantly larger in scale. What I would like to add for this application is that it is working with the existing building, and it's proposing to bring back into use this building which was subject to significant fire damage in 2012. The footprint of the building in essence remains the same. The single-storey rear extension is in line with the current conservatory, and the infill section doesn't really have a detrimental impact on number 7 Inglewood Avenue. During the process of design and looking at the overall impact at number 7, we've looked at what the area is used adjacent to number 9 Inglewood Avenue, which is currently used as a hard-surfaced car parking vehicle space. At the same time, we've retained to maintain the existing eaves height in order to reduce the overbearing impact. The increase in ridge height, in essence, visually will have a negligible impact on the residents in number 7, as from a visual sightline perspective, you're set quite low as existing in order for you to actually visually see the increase in ridge height. Should this affect the sunlight, the sun generally drops down past number 11, which is the property set further up, and the copse of trees also, currently as they stand, would kind of reduce the impact. So we believe that the overall development as it stands today won't affect the residents at number 7. We appreciate the conditions with reference to the obscure glazing along the side elevation, which the applicant is happy to adhere to. And overall, the development has been designed with the character of the existing property in mind, and also the character of the buildings along Inglewood Avenue, which are of different building typologies, utilising render, natural stone and timber claddings. We've introduced zinc as a third
30
material,
seconds.
Which mimics the slate, traditional Yorkshire slate colour palette type. We believe that the overall development is sympathetic in nature and doesn't have a detrimental impact on the visual amenity of the area. And I believe that that has also been resonated by the planning officer's recommendation for approval, which has been as a result of an extensive and ongoing long-standing dialogue where the applicant has worked with the local authority to come to this scheme. Thank you.
Councillor Uller.
Thank you, Chair. I think that this is like a redevelopment of a site. I mean, it's not really nice as it stands now. I think some of the comments made, I'd like to talk about that on Inglewood Avenue, there is a mixture of designs and styles. You've got greenhouses, red houses, brown houses, whatever colour you want. I'm happy to support the application. However, in terms of the windows, side elevation particularly, could anything be done with that?
Through you, Chair, proposing to obscurely glaze them, but if members didn't feel that was sufficient mitigation, you could suggest if you want them removed. That would be up to members if they felt that was necessary.
Finished, Councillor Sokol.
Chair, I just want to ask the question to officers, yeah? As the agent have said, the number of previous applications have been refused, either by this by officer or planning committee members, and some of them have been dismissed by appeal, yeah, Secretary of State. I just want to know what's the difference between this proposed building and the previous building being approved. Yeah.
So the current scheme is quite a bit smaller than the previously proposed schemes. They're proposing to increase the footprint of the building, have a more prominent design at the frontage. So this is reduced down the overall scale. The footprint is, like I've said, is largely the same. I don't know if you can see on the plan, but the dark black areas are the existing footprint. So they're proposing to infill an area to the rear and also a porch. So it would be largely the same in that extra additional spaces away from number 7, which is the closest property to be affected. There is an existing rear conservatory at the back here, so that is existing. So this scheme's much smaller than the previously approved scheme, and that's what we've assessed.
Councillor McGuinn.
Yeah, I think they should rename Inglewood Eccentric Road because of the different types of building we have found on the street. I think we should approve this building because obviously its appearance is very poor at the moment due to its dilapidated state. They're keeping the same footprint. I can't really see any objections you can make to it. I would recommend acceptance of the officer's decision.
Is that seconded? Seconded, Councillor Sim. Any further? No. All those in favour of officer's recommendation, please show.
7-4.
Against? Abstentions? That concludes our meeting. Thank you all. Merry Christmas to you all. I hope we have a good New Year and smaller agendas and less site visits.